the darkest corners of the unknown where shadows linger and the unexplained lurk. We invite you to join us on a journey into the abyss of fear and fascination. Prepare to be captivated by tales that defy logic, stories that send shivers down your spine. From inexplicable mysteries that haunt the living, to encounters with the otherworldly that will leave you breathless. We present to you 10 scary and unexplained stories, each tale more chilling, more perplexing than the last. So, turn down the lights, gather your courage, and venture into the realm of the unknown with us. But beware, for once you cross this threshold, there's no turning back. This story unfolds on a tranquil lake in central New Hampshire, just a stone's throw away from the base of the imposing Mount Kearsarge. It was a place filled with memories, crafted by time and the steady hands of my friend's grandfather, who had erected a cozy cabin after returning from the Second World War. It was in this idyllic setting that an inexplicable event occurred during a warm summer night between my junior and senior years of high school, an event that would forever alter our perception of reality. While my friend and I occasionally indulged in drinks and the occasional puff of ganja, this particular evening found us completely sober. Our journey to this peaceful haven was motivated not by inebriation, but by the simple desire to escape the monotony of our small hometown, nestled some 30 miles to the south. On a whim, we decided to drive up, spend the night at the cabin, light a crackling fire, and bask in the soothing embrace of the lakeside breeze. Dressed in nothing but t-shirts and swimming trunks, we were ready to relish the warmth of summer for as long as it would last. The clock ticked to around 9 or 10 p.m., and we decided to inspect my friend's grandfather's old canoe, nestled upside down upon the weathered wooden dock. We had plans to use it the following day, venturing to the lone island in search of loon nests and the elusive catfish that prowled the waters beneath. As we sauntered toward the dock from our initial spot, I found myself gazing across the serene lake at the towering presence of Mount Kearsarge. This majestic mountain, standing at a towering 2,937 feet or 895 meters, with a prominence of 2,080 feet or 630 meters, loomed like a sentinel in the night sky. We were merely a few miles from its summit, making it appear even more formidable against the canvas of the darkened heavens. Atop this mountain, a tower typically emitted a lone red light during the nighttime hours, a sight I had grown accustomed to witnessing. However, this particular night held a surprise. As my friend and I approached the dock, I couldn't help but notice that there were more lights in the sky than usual. Beyond the familiar red beacon, there was a second, slightly yellowish-orange orb situated to its right. These orbs were equidistant in height, hovering motionless in the night sky. They neither moved nor pulsated. They simply hung there like celestial lanterns suspended in the void. I couldn't contain my intrigue and shared my observation with my friend, who was equally captivated. We stood there, two science-believing realists, pondering the vastness of the cosmos. We acknowledged that the likelihood of humanity being alone in this boundless galaxy, let alone the universe, was infinitesimal, akin to the grains of sand that blanket Earth's shores. As we debated the Fermi paradox and considered the possibility that the lights might be a result of some temporary human-made occurrence atop the mountain, an astonishing transformation occurred before our eyes. One of the orbs began a gradual descent behind the mountain's backside, disappearing from view. It wasn't akin to a helicopter's descent. There was no typical vertical movement. Instead, it sank smoothly and soundlessly, vanishing in mere seconds without any lateral deviation. Our awe was palpable, but there was no time for us to process this strangeness. As if choreographed by some unseen hand, the second orb departed from its position. It didn't gain or lose elevation. It simply shot off horizontally with astounding velocity, tracing the lake's edge. When the light was about halfway between its starting point and our location, we began to apprehend that it might be headed directly for us. Frozen in place, our eyes remained fixed on the objects, curiosity mingling with a subtle anxiety. Without exchanging a word or even a glance, we shared an unspoken agreement to wait and witness whatever unfolded before us. In the absence of a clear course of action, this was our only choice. The object, now closing in on us, decelerated to a crawl, creeping overhead at a snail's pace. It wasn't the stereotypical mothership of science fiction lore, but its dimensions were substantial. If I were to venture an estimate, I'd say it measured approximately 50 meters in length by 30 meters in width. Its shape resembled that of a plum cigar, its underside adorned with 2 or 3 rows of orange lights. In that moment, I was entranced, my gaze locked onto this enigmatic craft. I scrutinized every detail I could perceive, though there weren't many. Apart from its size and the rows of lights, there was little else to discern. It emitted only a faint, almost imperceptible hum, and there were no blinding beams of light piercing the night. We stood in the pitch-black embrace of a late New Hampshire night, anticipating what might transpire next. But, remarkably, nothing happened. The craft continued its unhurried journey overhead and, once past us, accelerated skyward, vanishing into the dark void. I turned my gaze back to the mountain, and what I beheld left me in a state of disbelief. Only the usual flashing red light remained. The additional orbs had vanished. Without uttering a word, my friend and I exchanged only a glance that conveyed everything. We packed our belongings hastily and retreated to his car. The 30-mile drive back to our hometown was filled with contemplative silence, broken only by a quick stop at a convenience store for some snacks. Returning to my friend's house, we set up our beach chairs in the backyard, ready to converse about the extraordinary encounter we had just witnessed. In the ensuing weeks, my thoughts scarcely strayed from that bewildering night. I eventually divulged the tale to my parents, but their reaction was dismissive, attributing the experience to a helicopter or some other mundane occurrence. Their response discouraged me from sharing the story with anyone else until I was older and less concerned about the opinions of others. It's only now, as I sit here transcribing this inexplicable event, that I'm compelled to reconnect with my friend. I remain convinced of what I saw, knowing that the technology we possess as humans could not account for such phenomena, at least not as far as we know. The possibility that we are alone in the universe is infinitesimal, a notion underscored by the countless planets older than Earth where intelligent life might have evolved, potentially granting them a profound head start in technological development. In this vast cosmos, the encounter on that serene New Hampshire night was a profound reminder of our humble place in the grand tapestry of existence. It leaves us pondering what other enigmas await discovery just beyond the veil of our understanding. As I delved deeper into the mysteries of our campus and the enigmatic hound, I couldn't help but wonder about the choices we had made that fateful night. What if we had stayed longer in that Eerie room? What secrets could we have unraveled, and at what cost? But before I could ponder those questions further, my thoughts were drawn back to another unsettling tale, one of my mother's childhood traumas. It was a story she had shared with me in hushed tones, a memory that still sent shivers down her spine. The setting was a small town in Guatemala, far removed from the bustling capital city. My mother, a mere 10-year-old at the time, had been sent to live with her grandparents. Financial hardships had forced her mother's hand, leaving her with no choice but to entrust her children to the care of their elderly relatives. Each night, under the cloak of darkness, my mother was assigned a seemingly simple task, fetching buckets of water from a sink situated at the rear of her grandparents' house. This sink, a solitary source of water for the household, was located in an eerie, abandoned house nearby. No one lived there anymore, and its emptiness was an unsettling backdrop to her nightly chore. The journey from the main house to the sink should have been straightforward, a short 5-minute walk. However, this mundane task soon morphed into a chilling nightmare, and the source of her terror was none other than an entity known as La Llorona. On that fateful night, the darkness was impenetrable, and the absence of electricity left her reliant on an oil lamp for illumination. It was around 10 p.m. when she approached the sink, her footsteps hesitant but resolute. But as she neared her destination, an otherworldly encounter brought her to a standstill. A figure, ethereal and radiant, manifested before her. The oil lamp's flickering glow revealed a scene that would forever be etched in her memory. A white, glowing figure, a woman of unmatched beauty, stood just a few feet away. Her long, shimmering hair cascaded like a waterfall, but her feet were not that of a human. Instead, they resembled hooves, an unsettling distortion of the natural order. My mother, petrified and bewildered, watched as the figure remained motionless, silent as the abyss. It was an encounter that left her paralyzed, her body gripped by an icy terror that she could neither explain nor escape. Every fiber of her being screamed to flee, but an invisible force rendered her motionless. This enigmatic woman wore a flowing white dress, her face hidden from view. But my mother knew instinctively that this was no ordinary being. It was a moment of stark realization, an awakening to the chilling truth that the legends and myths of her childhood were not mere tales but living nightmares. The stories she had heard described a supernatural creature, a seductive woman who would lure unsuspecting victims away before unveiling her true, horrifying visage, that of a horse or a human skull. La Llorona, as it was known, was a creature of nightmares, a harbinger of doom. Terrified beyond measure, my mother, trembling and on the verge of hysteria, closed her eyes and clutched her cross necklace. In those moments of unspeakable dread, she embarked on a silent, fervent prayer, seeking protection and solace from forces unknown. For 5 agonizing minutes, she beseeched the divine until the numbing coldness that had enveloped her began to recede. Slowly, hesitantly, she opened her eyes once more. The malevolent figure had vanished, leaving her in a state of bewildered relief. She wasted no time collecting the water she needed from the sink, her movements swift yet cautious. She hurried back to the safety of her grandparents' house, her heart pounding with a fear she could not articulate. For the next 5 years, my mother was condemned to relive this haunting ordeal night after night. Each evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and darkness descended, she would make her way to the sink where La Llorona awaited. Always in the same spot, at the same time, the spectral figure with long, flowing white hair would materialize, an ominous harbinger of terror. Her nightly ritual was one of silent prayer and paralyzing fear. She dared not speak of her torment to her grandparents or anyone else, for who would believe the unimaginable horrors she had witnessed? It was a secret she held close, a burden she bore in isolation. It wasn't until she turned 15 and returned to Guatemala City to live with her mother that the torment finally ceased. The bustling urban environment seemed to drive away the malevolent specter that had haunted her for so long, allowing her to find some semblance of peace. As I listened to my mother recount this tale, I couldn't help but feel a shiver of unease creep down my spine. The world was a far stranger and more mysterious place than I had ever imagined, and the horrors that lurked in the shadows were not limited to our campus. My life has always been a tapestry woven with threads of the inexplicable. From my earliest days, I possessed a sixth sense, an uncanny ability to read the energy that surrounds others. My instincts are rarely wrong, and dreams often reveal glimpses of events yet to pass. But it's the unsettling and unexplainable incidents that have left the deepest imprints on my life. Around 12 years ago, my spouse, our oldest daughter, and I embarked on a new chapter, moving into a 2-story condo nestled among a row of identical buildings. At first glance, there was nothing ominous about the place. During our initial walkthrough, I sensed no foreboding energy, no whispers of malevolence lurking in the corners. A week later, as we began the arduous task of moving our belongings into the new abode, a wave of anxiety, nervousness, and fear enveloped me as I ascended the stairs. I tried to dismiss these feelings, attributing them to the stress of relocating and adjusting to unfamiliar surroundings. But the disquieting sensations lingered, and soon I found myself paralyzed by dread when faced with the prospect of ascending those stairs alone. It was then that our peaceful existence began to unravel. Our daughter, innocent and defenseless, would wake in the dead of night, her screams piercing the tranquility of our new home. She cried out as if pursued by malevolent forces, her terror tangible. One fateful night, I ventured into her room to soothe her shattered nerves. The instant I crossed the threshold, a paralyzing fear gripped me, a primal instinct warning me that to remain would bring imminent harm to both my daughter and me. I retreated in haste, leaving the room and its unseen horrors behind. From that night onward, a sinister presence clung to our lives like a shroud. Whenever I attempted to lay our daughter down for the night, she would awaken, inconsolable, crying for me to cradle her in my arms. The echoes of haunting footsteps reverberated up and down the staircase at all hours, disrupting our already fragile peace. We bore witness to enigmatic shadows that defied explanation, watched in disbelief as items disappeared only to reappear in their original places. It was a maddening ordeal, an intricate dance with the inexplicable that consumed our days and haunted our nights. The relentless torment persisted for 8 long months until a change in my spouse's job finally offered us an escape. We left that place, but little did we know that the malevolent specters of the past would follow us like vengeful phantoms. Our new home, another 2-story condo, seemed promising at first, but it wasn't long before strange and unexplainable occurrences resumed their haunting dance. Our daughter, now 3 years old, would engage in animated conversations with invisible companions during the witching hours of the night. Sliding closet doors, securely fastened, would yield to unseen hands swinging open in defiance of the laws of physics. One ominous morning, I found myself alone in our abode when, inexplicably, for different toys in our daughter's room sprang to life, their mechanical voices conspiring in eerie cacophony. Terrified beyond measure, I fled the condo, seeking refuge in the familiar embrace of my workplace, far from the eerie chorus of possessed toys. In the days that followed, we faced a new terror, an impending flood brought on by a neighbor's malfunctioning water heater. Forced to abandon our home once more, we discovered an eerie revelation as we packed our daughter's belongings. None of the toys responsible for that unsettling morning were to be found. Our nomadic existence eventually led us to yet another residence, but the ceaseless specter of the unexplained remained our constant companion. The feeling of being watched, of an unseen presence lurking just beyond sight, became an unshakable burden. Doors to bedrooms and laundry rooms slammed shut with violent force, as though propelled by an unseen hand. One night, the most harrowing encounter of all would etch itself into the annals of my memory. My daughter and I lay in our shared bed, her small form cocooned in the embrace of sleep. Suddenly, she awoke, her eyes locking onto mine with a haunting intensity. In a voice devoid of her usual innocence, she began to speak of my deceased father, a man she had never met, a figure lost to her young understanding. Her words, delivered with eerie detachment, flowed like a river of unsettling knowledge. When her recital concluded, she lay back down, slipping into slumber as though the conversation had never occurred. When questioned the following day, she stared back at me, her eyes vacant, her memories erased, as if that surreal night had been nothing more than a phantasmal dream. That same night, as if to cement the nightmare, I found myself ensnared in a web of my own, a nightmarish realm from which I fought to break free. I awoke with a start, only to feel a malevolent presence gripping my ankle with vice-like intensity. 3 fingers, cold as death, dug into my flesh, their sharp nails leaving unmistakable indentations. Our lives, once ordinary, have become a relentless odyssey into the unknown. With each move, each shift in our lives, the malevolent forces followed, an inescapable shadow cast over our existence. In our desperation, we resorted to a desperate plea for sanctuary. Blessed items were placed throughout our home, forming a protective barrier that, for a time, seemed to ward off the malevolent entities. But as our lives settled into a fragile semblance of normalcy, the specter of the unexplained stirred once more. Now, as I recount these harrowing chapters of my life, I stand at the precipice of despair, haunted by the persistent dread that whatever clings to us remains unrelenting. I am at my wit's end, seeking guidance, a glimmer of hope to lead me out of this labyrinthine nightmare that has become my life. This story is one that has lingered in the recesses of my mind for decades, an encounter with the inexplicable that defies rational explanation. It was a chilly evening, the 13th of October in the year 1988, a Thursday to be precise. My friend and I were navigating the labyrinthine corridors of the University of Northern Iowa in Cedar Falls deep into our freshman year. I'll withhold our names from this account, for it is not fame but a yearning for understanding that compels me to share this tale. What transpired on that eerie evening still haunts me, and I seek solace in the possibility that others might have experienced something similar. Our dormitories, Luther Hall and Bartlett Hall, were among the oldest on campus. On this particular night, my friend and I decided to venture out for a walk after concluding our studies. There was a sense of curiosity in the air, a desire to wander and explore the unknown. Rumors had reached our ears that a haunted house was under construction in Luther Hall and that some of our acquaintances were involved in its creation. We were both relatively unfamiliar with the layout of the hall, so we embarked on a spontaneous journey to uncover the mysterious location. As we ascended the stairs toward the highest level of the building, we encountered a peculiar sight. The grand doors at the pinnacle of the central stairwell were locked, shrouded in dark fabric. Stranger still, there was an eerie silence emanating from the other side. No voices, no signs of activity. Undeterred, we decided to explore the floor immediately below. This floor presented itself as a subdued realm, inhabited by dorm rooms. The width of the central stairwell was bridged by a fire door to the right and another to the left. The door to the left, though, captured our attention. It was unlike the others, aged and painted wood rather than the steel doors that dotted the building. The adjacent bathroom door would later prove to be significant. As I attempted to turn the handle of the wooden door, it resisted my efforts, firmly locked. It appeared that our exploration had reached its end. However, as I began to turn away, a metallic sound pierced the air, and my friend gasped in astonishment. She recounted how she had attempted to turn the handle, and to her shock, it had moved in the opposite direction, away from her grasp. My curiosity piqued, I turned back to witness the unfolding scene. The door, once securely closed, had now creaked open, revealing a dark room beyond. My friend, emboldened by her resolve, pushed the door wider and ventured inside. I strained to maintain visual contact with her as she scoured the room for a light switch. My search along the doorframe for a conventional switch proved fruitless. There was nothing where one would expect to find it. Stretching my arm farther, I finally encountered an antiquated switch at a height more suited to head level. As my fingers brushed against it, an inexplicable event occurred. The lights flickered to life of their own accord. Instinctively, I flicked the switch back, plunging the room into darkness once more. My friend gasped, and in response, I returned the room to its illuminated state. It was then that my friend, now deeper into the room, discovered another switch, this time on a massive timber pillar. As the room bathed in light, we beheld an expanse of space, easily 100 feet in length and 40 to 50 feet in width. Two grand, dark wood staircases crisscrossed, leading to a loft area that lined the walls. The room was adorned with large, old-style hospital beds, relics from the early 1900s. An antique wheelchair, its frame laden with archaic machinery, stood sentinel. Large windows punctuated the room, allowing the moonlight to stream in. Yet, despite our fascination, an unsettling sensation pervaded the air. It was as though an invisible hand cautioned us against our presence in that room. We shared a wordless understanding and silently retreated, both harboring a vague sense that our exploration had trespassed upon forbidden territory. In the days that followed, my friend engaged in a conversation with one of her associates involved in the haunted house project. Curiosity about the purpose of the hospital-themed room prompted her query. To her bewilderment, her friend met her question with a blank stare. This bewildering response spurred her to seek clarification from me regarding our experience. I recounted the details, the large windows, the hospital beds, and the archaic wheelchair. Yet, as we searched the exterior of Luther Hall, we found no trace of such windows. Desperation drove us to seek blueprints or any record of the room's existence, but our efforts bore no fruit. We were unable to locate the elusive door that had led us to this enigmatic space. In 1991, our persistence led us to enlist the assistance of resident assistants, who procured a key for us. Armed with access to the room, we unlocked the mysteries of the past. However, what we discovered was far from the room we had ventured into that fateful evening. The low, sloping ceilings, tiny alcoves with small windows, and a haphazard collection of junk and storage greeted us. Among the clutter lay the disintegrated remnants of hospital bed frame headboards and footboards, the once antique wheelchair, and the mysterious machine, all shrouded in thick layers of dust and cobwebs. What had transpired on that peculiar evening in 1988 remained an enigma. Had we stumbled upon an alternate dimension, a portal through time, or perhaps a parallel universe? The answer eludes us, lost to the vagaries of time and space. Yet, the sensation of that night lingers, a haunting reminder of the inexplicable mysteries that dwell on the fringes of our reality. The tale unfolded against the backdrop of a past era, a time when I was but a recent graduate, striving to make my mark as a low-paid radio presenter at the local television station. My life, it seemed, was destined for a collision with the enigmatic forces of the unknown. Jordan, a man significantly my senior, was the artist and writer who had captivated my heart. Yet, our relationship, though tinged with affection, had never blossomed into the intimacy I yearned for. Exclusive work and unresolved personal matters had consistently acted as insurmountable barriers. In those turbulent days, life had thrown us into the role of caretakers. Jordan's mother, once an epitome of headstrong independence, had recently suffered a debilitating stroke. Our days were woven with the threads of caring for her in diverse ways. She clung fiercely to her identity, her spirit unbroken despite her physical limitations. A professional stylist was a frequent visitor to her apartment, attending to the meticulous maintenance of her appearance. Each week, she would endure the careful ministrations of the stylist, who tended to her hair, painted her nails, and engaged in other routines that defied her slight immobilization and health condition. Her determination to preserve her physical allure remained undiminished. My presence often graced her apartment, where we engaged in conversations over endless cups of coffee and countless cigarettes. Her wisdom and the depth of her life experiences offered me a unique perspective. I became privy to her quirks, her idiosyncrasies, and the profound bond she shared with her son. One fateful morning, I awoke beside Jordan, ready to prepare breakfast. As I bustled around the kitchen, the remnants of our shared slumber clinging to my drowsy eyes, I noticed that Jordan's mother was still ensconced in her bed. She lingered there longer than usual, the morning sun casting elongated shadows across her room. With the aroma of breakfast wafting through the air, I assumed that the time had come to rouse her. Jordan, standing resolute and enigmatic, entered her room with an unspoken sense of purpose. His rapid exit, marked by the bewildered look etched on his face, left me perplexed. My concern was met with Jordan's calm yet cryptic words, "Go home." "She's gone. I don't want you to see this." It was a terse directive laden with the weight of an unspoken truth. The pieces fell into place, and I realized the undeniable reality that had unfolded within the confines of that room. Tears welled in my eyes, but I understood the need to respect his wishes. Clad in my coat, I embarked on my solitary journey home, leaving Jordan to navigate the unfathomable emotions that engulfed him. The following days unfolded like a disorienting blur, a haze of grief and formalities. A call beckoned me for a final visitation, a chance to bid farewell to Jordan's mother before her body was transported to a nearby city where she would be cremated and laid to rest. As swiftly as it had begun, the mourning period concluded. Jordan, now bereft of his mother, returned home, an echoing void filling the apartment that had once been their sanctuary. In an attempt to provide solace, I ventured to his apartment, extending a comforting presence in his life. We found a semblance of support in the company of a close friend who had traveled to pay her respects. The three of us, bound by our shared grief, sought solace in each other's presence. It was decided that she would spend the night before her departure, allowing us to lean on one another for support. The apartment, draped in the somber shroud of their recent loss, bore the weight of unspoken grief. The hours flowed languidly, and as night descended, I found myself pacing the living room. Emotions swirled within me, rising like a tempestuous tide. My gaze fell upon the antique grandfather clock that stood sentinel against the living room wall. The hands of the clock, in an inexplicable occurrence, began moving backward, defying the relentless march of time. A surreal stillness enveloped me, rendering me breathless as I watched the arrows oscillate in their enigmatic dance. For a lingering moment, I stood entranced, disbelief warring with acceptance. When I finally tore my gaze from the clock, I determined to investigate this uncanny phenomenon. My steps, imbued with a sense of purpose, carried me to the clock, my fingers brushing its ornate surface as I sought answers. As I reached out, my senses adjusting to the dimly lit room, I noticed that the other clocks in the living room bore similar anomalies. It was as though time itself had unraveled, its ordered procession disrupted by some unseen force. The realization washed over me, a poignant blend of sorrow and astonishment. A curious blend of emotions stirred within me, happiness and sorrow entwined, forming a bittersweet symphony. Unable to contain my discovery, I called out for Jordan and our visiting friend, their presence summoned to bear witness to the inexplicable. They, too, stood bewildered, their eyes affixed to the robe clocks that defied the laws of time. There was no fear in their expressions, only a quiet knowing, as if we were privy to a secret shared among kindred souls. The passing minutes saw our emotions ebb, and we descended into a contemplative silence. We congregated on the living room sofa, seeking refuge in the banalities of television to distract us from the uncanny. The clock, now relegated to the periphery of our thoughts, struck 11. A sudden upheaval jolted us from our complacency. The television screen, bathed in the glow of the late hour, transformed into an unsettling sea of static. Jordan, instinctively rising with the intention to restore order to the device, froze mid-step. The static, once a chaotic maelstrom, congealed into an abyss of impenetrable darkness. A message, inscribed in a small corner of the void, pierced through the obscurity, 2 words that carried profound weight. Sleep 3. In the darkness, Jordan stood, his form a silhouette against the inky abyss of the screen. His hand, poised as if to strike the television, remained suspended. The room bore witness to his astonishment, his gaze locked onto the cryptic message. As suddenly as it had appeared, the message dissolved, returning the screen to its static state. We, 3 souls in the shadows, exchanged glances that conveyed a shared understanding, a momentary intrusion from the beyond, a mysterious nod from Jordan's departed mother. A collective chuckle, tinged with unease, escaped our lips. No one voiced their disquiet, no alarms sounded, but we harbored a silent belief that this message was her way of bidding farewell. An affirmation, perhaps, that even in the so-called afterlife, she maintained her indomitable sense of humor. The night continued, the unsettling episode fading into memory. We retreated to our beds, the specter of the unknown now a mere whisper in the recesses of our thoughts. The quiet hours of the night, as the world slumbered, we clung to the belief that the inexplicable occurrences were not to be feared. Instead, they were a testament to the enduring connection between the realms of the living and the departed, a connection that transcended the boundaries of time itself. In the realm of the paranormal, stories often dance on the thin line between belief and skepticism. They weave a tapestry of eerie encounters, and in their retelling, we encounter that nagging voice of doubt. Yet, some tales bear the weight of authenticity, echoing with elements of corroboration that make us pause and ponder. This chapter is one such account, a chilling narrative that unfolded not in the direct experience of the storyteller, but in the life of someone very close, shrouded in uncertainty, doubt, and an inexplicable series of events. Before we dive into the heart of this haunting tale, let's set the stage with a bit of background. The central character of this story, known as Miv, was a remarkable woman. Our storyteller and Miv shared an unusual bond, a deep friendship that defied the odds of age and background. They first crossed paths when our narrator was merely 18, a young soul immersed in the world of motorcycles, rock music, guitars, horror movies, and physical fitness. Miv, on the other hand, stood in stark contrast. A short, stout figure with greasy hair, a cane, thick bottle-rimmed glasses, and an ever-present cigarette. Her home, a Victorian terrace house with a subtle air of eeriness, served as a backdrop for their encounters. Now, let's address the enigmatic character known as the Wizard, Miv's husband. The Wizard, as he was nicknamed, was far from an ordinary individual. His physical demeanor featured a distinctive orthopedic shoe that earned him the colloquial label Clubfoot. The clinking of his uneven footsteps echoed ominously through their tall, narrow, wood-floored abode. The Wizard's appearance matched his moniker, long gray hair, a goatee resembling a stereotypical devil, and a perpetual gray suit that wrapped his form. But it wasn't just his appearance that set him apart, it was his eccentric mind, displaying the peculiarities of age rather than madness. He had a history linked to black magic, a reputation for dabbling in dark deeds that had kept him at arm's length from occult circles. Now that our characters are introduced, let's venture into the heart of this perplexing tale, a tale that unfolded years ago when Miv and the wizard resided in South Wales, United Kingdom. Their home was a typical Victorian terrace house, a three-story structure with an inherent aura of spookiness that often clings to such old dwellings. At this point, their lives had just welcomed their first child, who would, curiously enough, grow up to become one of the storyteller's closest friends, intertwining their fates in a web of strange occurrences. Miv's life was also marked by a brief stint in a convent, endowing her with a deep sense of religious faith. However, this faith would soon be tested beyond its breaking points by the inexplicable events that unfolded. The first sign of trouble came in the form of distant voices that Miv began hearing within the confines of their home. At first, these voices were mere murmurs, faint echoes in empty rooms. She dismissed them as one often does when confronted with the inexplicable. But these voices grew bolder, addressing her directly. Fear crept into her heart as she worried about her own sanity, and even more so about the possibility of losing her son due to her perceived inability to care for him. Yet, she dared not share her haunting experiences with anyone. The torment escalated as the voices took on a sinister tone, threatening to drive her to madness. They whispered chilling promises of torment and despair. Adding to her torment, a dark, shadowy figure materialized at the top of the stairs, a presence that seemed to defy the boundaries of reality. It appeared in a manner that almost led one to stumble while turning to investigate, an ominous harbinger of danger. Still, Miv kept her torment locked within, for her religious convictions left no room for the existence of ghosts. In her mind, it was a subjective phenomenon, a sign of her own mental unraveling. One day, Miv confronted their cleaner, questioning why she left the front door wide open during her cleaning routines, even in the cold. The cleaner's response would change Miv's life forever. She revealed that the door was left ajar as an escape route, should the dark presence at the top of the stairs come for her, a revelation that shattered Miv's denial. Another peculiar encounter involved a fearless friend who scoffed at the supernatural. After berating Miv for her superstitions, this friend hesitated to venture upstairs alone, terrified by the dark shadow lurking at the top of the staircase. A truly chilling episode transpired as Miv was bathing her son in the upstairs bathroom. A friend knocked at the front door, prompting Miv to call out and invite him in. He ascended the stairs, but when he entered the bathroom, he clung to Miv in sheer terror, as if he had witnessed something beyond comprehension. The climax of this haunting ordeal arrived when the entity beckoned Miv to the dark, top-floor bedroom. An inexplicable compulsion compelled her to obey its will, even against her own resistance. Each step up the staircase was a battle of wills, as the entity gently insisted, driving her ever upward. In the end, she found herself lying in the darkened room, a reluctant participant in a sinister ritual. Here, the tale takes a disturbing turn. Miv described how the entity seemed to invade her very being, assaulting her through her pores, an intrusion she likened to an assault, an invasion of her very essence. She summoned her inner strength, embarking on a grueling internal struggle. It was a battle against a force beyond human comprehension. Only when she invoked the name of Jesus or offered a prayer, the entity retreated instantly, a testament to the power of faith in the face of the unexplained. This narrative, fraught with inexplicable events and spiritual battles, left its indelible mark on Miv's life. But it also raises countless questions. Why did she keep silent for so long? What compelled her to endure such a haunting presence within her own home? And perhaps the most perplexing question of all, what led her to remain married to a man known for his association with the dark arts? As we delve deeper into this chapter, we may unearth further mysteries hidden within this family's enigmatic history. But for now, we have witnessed the unfolding of a paranormal odyssey where the boundaries between belief and skepticism blur, leaving us with more questions than answers. The house, a relic of the late 1800s, stood as a looming sentinel of the past. It bore the weight of history within its aged walls, and for my family, it harbored a dark and unsettling secret, a legacy of restless spirits. The peculiar structure of the house only added to its enigmatic aura. Technically, it was two separate yet identical houses, seamlessly conjoined into one massive abode. According to my mother's retelling of the house's history, it had been owned by twin sisters, two women who shared a bond that transcended blood, a bond that would eventually be their undoing. Each twin inhabited her own side of the house, with both sides interconnected by a mysterious staircase concealed within the attic's shadowy recesses. This architectural quirk seemed to symbolize the twins' inseparable connection, a connection that would soon turn tragic. Legend whispered of a malevolent uncle whose actions cast a pall of darkness over the sisters' lives. The sinister details were shrouded in obscurity, but the tale concluded with one twin carrying the burden of an unborn child, a sinister legacy of her uncle's cruelty. The gruesome climax was a horrifying tableau. The other twin, driven to madness, smothered the newborn child. The act of infanticide left a scar on their souls so deep that it led to a chilling and macabre end. Both twins, their lives irrevocably entwined by blood and horror, chose the path of suicide. Such was the tale that hovered like a specter over the house, an eerie legacy of tragedy that refused to be buried with the past. Nearly every member of my family who had the misfortune of sleeping within its walls had emerged with a harrowing story to tell. I too had become a reluctant participant in this chilling tradition. The summer after my 8th grade graduation, the occasion had arisen for me to spend a fateful night within the haunted confines of the house. My older cousin's wedding, set in a distant state, had summoned most of our family members away. Left behind were my aunt and me, burdened with the task of catching an early morning flight. A sense of unease clung to my steps as I traversed the creaking floors of the house. My aunt, oblivious to my trepidation, suggested that I sleep in her room. My reason, laid bare before her, was simple: I believed the house to be haunted. She scoffed at my fears, dismissing them with an irritated shake of her head. She relented only slightly, offering her room as a temporary sanctuary to appease my apprehension. With the sinking sun, the veil of night descended, and I found myself ensconced in her room. Before retiring for the night, I sought refuge in the medicine cabinet. A dose of sleep medicine, I thought, might hasten my journey into the realm of dreams, sparing me from the eerie reality of the house. Alas, my body remained stubbornly awake, and the shadows of the room conspired to keep me vigilant. My aunt's breathing, steady and rhythmic, indicated her slumber. I, on the other hand, lay wide-eyed and my senses attuned to the darkness beyond. My gaze oscillated between the dimly lit television screen and the gaping maw of the hallway which beckoned from the open door. The night wore on, the hours stretching into an unending abyss. For a time, the room remained cloaked in an oppressive silence. Gradually, a modicum of ease settled upon me, and I allowed myself to relax into the embrace of the bed. Just as my guard began to wane, a disturbance ruptured the stillness. The doorknob of the closet, an innocuous piece of furniture in the corner, began to twist with frantic urgency. It rotated with a desperate intensity, as though an unseen force sought release from within. My heart catapulted into a frenetic rhythm, and I jolted upright, the comfort of the bed now a distant memory. Panic surged through me as I watched the doorknob's ceaseless rotation, its eerie dance an affront to the laws of the physical world. Throughout the remainder of the night, I remained in a state of fevered vigilance. My eyes never strayed from the closet door, my senses sharpened to detect any hint of the malevolent presence lurking within. To my immense relief, the door never yielded to the unseen force. It remained locked, barring entry to whatever lay beyond. Years later, I found myself drawn back to the haunted abode, a reluctant traveler to the realm of the inexplicable. The summer after graduating from college, the wheels of fate steered me toward another night within its haunted halls. Once more, the impending journey necessitated an early morning flight. I resigned myself to the impending ordeal, proceeding with trepidation to the room down the hall from my aunt's. Night descended like a shroud, and as I prepared to confront the malevolent past that clung to the house, I steeled myself for a sleepless night. The clock, its hands creeping towards a witching hour, bore witness to my silent vigil. The room, steeped in shadow, seemed to hold its breath. I sat before the television, a flickering island of light in the obsidian sea of the unknown. In the profound stillness of the night, the familiar and unsettling sounds began. A rhythmic tapping, the sound of heeled shoes, reverberated through the air. The source of the sound remained a mystery concealed in the shadowy depths of the house. The relentless footfalls echoed from the base of the stairs, ascended with eerie precision, traversed the hallway, and halted just outside the room in which I sat. I sprang into action, my instincts commanding me to fortify the room's defenses. With all my strength, I pushed a heavy daybed before the door, its bulk serving as a barrier to whatever malevolent force sought entry. Yet, my barricade could not quell the unease that coiled within me, a sense of impending doom that clung to the atmosphere. The relentless footsteps continued an otherworldly procession that defied reason and logic. Each time, the enigmatic entity would traverse the same path, ascending the stairs, traversing the hall, and pausing just outside my door. Despite the barricade, fear still clung to my every breath. In a desperate bid to break the oppressive tension, I turned on the television, hoping that the mundane would drive away the malevolent. Comedy, a bastion of normalcy, flickered on the screen, yet my unease remained. Hours passed in this eerie dance of anticipation and dread. The footsteps persisted until, as inexplicably as they had begun, they ceased. The room, shrouded in silence, was now a realm of uncertainty, but I dared not lower my guard. The door remained barricaded, and my eyes remained open, fixated on the darkness beyond. I waited, my senses attuned to the slightest hint of the supernatural. Morning arrived as an unspoken reprieve. The first light of dawn chased away the lingering shadows, banishing the malevolent force that had stalked the night. Though shaken, I remained resolute in my decision. I would never again be a guest within my aunt's haunted house. In that labyrinth of secrets where past and present intertwined, I had tasted the forbidden fruits of the unknown. The twin sisters, their lives forever marred by tragedy, whispered their tragic tale through the spectral echoes of time, leaving an indelible mark on those who dared to venture into their realm of darkness. The small trailer in the heart of Ohio concealed a myriad of secrets, its walls echoing with the hushed whispers of things unseen. Sarah, the storyteller, had spent her childhood in this unassuming place. The vivid memories from her youth, still etched into her mind, danced at the edges of her recollections. "I've been listening to your stories for a while," she began, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and anticipation. "Now I finally got the courage to share my own." Her tale, born from a hazy childhood, would unravel like a tapestry of the supernatural woven together over the years. The air hung heavy with suspense as Sarah ventured into the labyrinth of her past. The tale commenced during her tender years at the age of 5. In that rural town of Ohio, secrets were buried as deep as the roots of the ancient trees. To safeguard her loved ones, Sarah vowed to change their identities to protect their innocence. Her older sister, Lucy, who would play a central role in this haunting narrative, took on a new name for the sake of anonymity. Nestled in their trailer, an island of habitation amidst the vast expanse of nowhere, they found themselves on a fateful night. Lucy had invited her peculiar friend, Jessie, for a sleepover. Jessie, a gothic enthusiast with a fascination for the eerie and macabre, had brought along an innocent-looking Ouija board. Sarah, being the tender age of 5, had no inkling of the Ouija board's ominous significance. To her, it was just another board game, a trinket to pass the time. She watched, curiosity twinkling in her innocent eyes, as Lucy and Jessie placed candles and drew a protective ring of salt around her bed. As the night enveloped them in shadows, the two older girls began their mystic endeavor. Cross-legged on the floor, fingers resting lightly on the pancetta, they delved into the enigmatic world of the Ouija board. Questions flowed like water, and answers began to surface, moving the indicator with an unseen force. Within minutes, suspicion crept into the room like an uninvited guest at the seance. Accusations flew between Lucy and Jessie. "Did you move it?" they asked, unable to comprehend the supernatural presence guiding their hands. The truth soon became undeniable, and external force held sway over their board. As the seance intensified, they received an eerie directive to lay flat on the floor. Sarah, observing from her bed, felt a shiver run down her spine. She bore witness to a surreal phenomenon. A crimson orb and a pallid one, like ethereal entities, emanated from the Ouija board. Lucy was ensnared by the crimson orb, while Jessie was the vessel for the pale one. An eerie stillness gripped the room. Sarah could scarcely breathe, her young heart pounding like a drum. Abruptly, darkness unfurled its ominous wings, shrouding her in terror. A shadowy figure swarmed over her bed, and her screams reverberated through the trailer. Sarah's mother, alerted by the commotion, rushed to her aid. The sight that met her eyes was nightmarish. Sarah was levitating, her hair suspended in midair. Lucy and Jesse, trapped on the floor, were powerless. Sarah's mother, her voice trembling yet resolute, chanted incantations that defied understanding. The room quivered with mystic energy, and a force relinquished its grip on Sarah, returning her safely to her bed. Her mother's piercing gaze fell upon the Ouija board, an instrument of their torment. Questions poured forth, but Lucy and Jesse remained reticent. It was Sarah, the youngest yet the most perceptive, who divulged the night's harrowing events. Anguish and anger welled up in her mother's eyes as she discerned the peril they had unknowingly summoned. With determination, she confiscated the Ouija board and set it ablaze outside, an act they would later learn was fraught with perilous consequences. A decade of tranquility followed as the family moved into a double-wide trailer with a basement foundation that aimed to mimic a conventional home. Yet, this newfound peace was but a fragile veneer threatened by an eerie undercurrent. Trouble, it seemed, had taken root in the very foundation they had laid. The back wall of the basement repeatedly collapsed, an inexplicable recurrence that defied natural explanations. Their resolve tested, they resorted to desperate measures to secure the unstable structure, their efforts a testament to the inexplicable forces at play. A significant turning point arrived in Sarah's 15th year. Her mother, seeking respite in an antique store, acquired an ornate mirror, a relic of forgotten times. It found its home above a vast aquarium, silently biding its time. On an ordinary day, with mundane conversations filling the air, a disconcerting incident unfolded. Running footsteps reverberated through the trailer, followed by the innocent laughter of a child. Abruptly, her bedroom door slammed shut with an otherworldly force. Panic gripped the family as they grappled with the inexplicable. Things took a darker turn one summer morning when Sarah raised late, her mother exhausted from a grueling week of work, cherishing her rare day off with precious slumber. The kitchen, a scene of surreal disorder, greeted her. Cabinet doors swung open, dishes precariously stacked on the counters as if orchestrated by an unseen hand. Canned vegetables defied gravity, balancing in gravity-defying configurations. Her mother, drawn by her daughter's scream, bore witness to the enigmatic chaos. Fear etched across her face, her mind raced to grasp the unfathomable. Tempers flared as she confronted her skeptical husband, who had yet to experience these inexplicable events. In the crucible of their argument, a decision was made. Her mother, desperate for solace, turned to a Wiccan priestess for guidance. The priestess bestowed blessings and artifacts meant to exorcise the malevolent presence from their lives, sending Sarah away to safety as she embarked on her mystic mission. What transpired that night remained shrouded in mystery, concealed by the veil of time. Whatever rite was performed seemed to quell the supernatural turbulence, granting them a year of respite. Yet, the respite was fleeting, and the haunting resumed with unrelenting fervor. The living room, the heart of their home, bore witness to the next harrowing episode. A large couch, flanked by end tables and a love seat, was arranged like an owl. A fireplace adorned the room, its opposite wall occupied by a weekend. On one seemingly ordinary day, as Sarah labored on a school project, her back turned to the hearth, an unsettling presence crept into the room. An eerie sensation, a disconcerting gaze boring into her, sent shivers racing down her spine. Slowly, she turned, her eyes locking onto the fireplace. There, she beheld a grotesque visage, a figure with scraggly hair, cat-like green eyes, and a malevolent, alligator-toothed grin. Transfixed and terrified, she watched as it moved, its head swaying in a macabre dance. It uttered words that seemed to emerge from the very air itself, its lips unmoving. "I've been with you for many years, and I will never leave," it declared, its words etching into her soul. A sinister pact sealed in that chilling moment. Dread gnawing at her, Sarah fled to the house phone, dialing her mother's number with trembling fingers. Panic rose within her as she recounted the horrors she had witnessed. Her mother's voice, laced with disbelief, urged caution. Her parents' return brought skepticism, her father doubting her account of the events. They dismissed her story as a mere product of her imagination, unaware of the malevolence lurking within their home. The haunting intensified in the ensuing weeks, culminating in a terrifying encounter. Sarah and her then partner embarked on a night drive, seeking solace from the relentless turmoil. Rain had soaked the earth for days, lending an eerie atmosphere to their journey. As they descended a steep hill, the figure, the same sinister entity from Sarah's fireplace, materialized before them. This time, it bore a physical form, a towering, 6-foot monstrosity with clawed hands. Panic seized them, and her partner swerved in a desperate bid to evade the malevolent specter. Tires screeched, and their car careened off the road, hurtling down a hill with a curved bottom and an unforgiving embankment. Miraculously, they landed on a bush, the foliage cushioning their fall. Though shaken, they emerged with minor injuries, the terror of the encounter etched into their minds. Sarah's ordeal, however, was far from over. As she attempted to secure help, the figure materialized once more, looming within a breath's distance. Its voice, a sinister whisper that defied physicality, reached her ears. In that dreadful moment, it seemed to convey an inscrutable message, but her fear prevented her from comprehending its intent. Her ex-partner returned with his truck, and as the headlights bathed the figure in light, it dissolved into the shadows, vanishing into the night. Sarah's secret remained concealed, the entity's cryptic message haunting her thoughts. Months later, her relationship crumbled, leaving her partner mired in misfortune. Whether it was the malevolence of the entity or mere coincidence, Sarah could not discern. The events of her past clung to her, their enigma forever imprinted on her soul. As Sarah's narrative wove its chilling tapestry, listeners hung on every word, their hearts heavy with dread. The unseen forces that had plagued her family, from the ill-fated Ouija board to the malevolent entity, remained elusive, their motives shrouded in darkness. The tale served as a stark reminder of the unknown lurking in the shadows, a testament to the inexplicable forces that could encroach upon even the most ordinary lives. As Sarah concluded her haunting account, the echoes of her past resonated in the room, leaving a lingering sense of unease. In the hazy summers of my earliest memories, when the world seemed vast and filled with wonder, my grandparents embarked on an endeavor that would forever weave my life with the enigmatic threads of the supernatural. I was a child of 4 or 5 when they bought an empty lot beside our modest family home and began constructing a house, a structure destined to house secrets darker than the shadowy woods that loomed behind it. To the casual observer, the decision to build a house beside their daughter's dwelling might have appeared a simple matter of familial closeness, a desire to live near their daughter and her growing family. But as the years unfolded, I came to realize that my grandmother's motives for choosing the precise lot were shrouded in a chilling mystery. The empty lot my grandparents had selected lay adjacent to our home, but the land bore an ominous history that remained hidden from me until later years. A thick mass of trees, a verdant veil of ancient guardians, enveloped the rear of our home. It was within those woods that the well laid, an abandoned relic, a sinister reminder of a tragic past. Generations ago, children had slipped into the depths of that well, their young lives extinguished by the unforgiving embrace of its dark waters. The number of souls claimed by that cursed abyss remained uncertain, lost to the unforgiving passage of time. Only a fading outline of a cabin stood as the sole testament to the past, a spectral relic concealed among the trees. My grandmother, with her unfathomable connection to the supernatural, had chosen this unsettling location for reasons she never truly explained. There was ample space elsewhere on the lot, yet she insisted on this precise spot, a patch of land tainted by an unspeakable tragedy. She didn't articulate the rationale behind her choice. Rather, she spoke in riddles and half-truths. She was a woman possessed by an eerie intuition, a sense that whispered to her from the depths of the unknown. The history of the place beckoned to her, an irresistible siren's call that defied explanation. My childhood unfolded against the backdrop of my grandparents' peculiar existence. They were unconventional figures, devout Catholics with an insatiable curiosity for the supernatural. In the early 1990s, long before the ubiquity of the internet, my grandmother embarked on quests that took her on hours-long journeys to acquire dolls rumored to be possessed by restless spirits. These spectral acquisitions, she claimed, were known by word of mouth, their origins and eerie histories passed among those who dabbled in the arcane. She was consumed by her obsession with these dolls, each one bearing its own macabre tale. Their residence was a sprawling two-story house, yet the second floor remained an enigma to most. It lay dormant, a realm rarely ventured into by the family. My grandmother, in her peculiar fashion, had transformed the two upstairs bedrooms into what she referred to as spirit bedrooms. Stepping into these rooms felt akin to entering a sepulchre dedicated to the otherworldly. They held the trappings of normalcy, beds adorned with flowery quilts, dresses hanging neatly in the closets, and shelves lined with toys. To the untrained eye, they appeared as standard children's bedrooms. I was granted passage into these rooms, a privilege that left me both intrigued and unnerved. I would play there, or on rare occasions, even sleep in those eerie chambers. Yet, amidst the dolls and toys, I encountered neither sight nor sound of the supernatural. The rooms remained devoid of spectral visitors, their silence a stark contrast to the cacophonous world below. While I played or slumbered within those spectral confines, the rest of the house echoed with inexplicable phenomena. From downstairs, I would listen, my ears attuned to the eerie sounds emanating from those spirit bedrooms. Laughter, childlike and innocent, would drift down the stairs, mingling with the mundane sounds of the house. The distinct patter of tiny feet would resonate through the floorboards as the phantasmal children reveled in their spectral playground. On some occasions, the bedroom doors would lock from the inside, imprisoning unseen occupants, only to unlock them later as if obeying the whims of capricious spirits. It was a house of peculiarities, a place where the realms of the living and the dead danced an unsettling tango. As the years passed, my grandmother began to share her own experiences, tales that straddled the precipice between the uncanny and the unfathomable. She spoke of encounters with malevolent entities, of being physically accosted by forces that defied human comprehension. In hushed tones, she recounted an incident from her youth, a harrowing encounter with a presence she believed to be the devil himself. The malevolent entity, she claimed, had breached the sanctity of her bedroom, violating the very boundaries of her existence. I listened to her stories, torn between skepticism and a child's innate belief in the fantastical. I could never quite discern to whom or what she was referring. Her stories were veiled in obscurity, leaving me to puzzle over their meaning and significance. She hinted that my grandfather had played a role in the unearthly events that haunted their lives, but the details remained elusive, obscured by a shroud of silence. My grandparents, both now departed from this world, carried their secrets to the grave. As I look back on those bygone days, I am left with a profound sense of unease. I tread the fragile line between a skeptic's disbelief and a child's lingering dread. The house that stood as both a sanctuary and a prison harbored secrets that would forever elude my understanding, casting a long and eerie shadow over the tapestry of my family's history. Let me begin by asserting that this is not my inaugural encounter with the supernatural. You see, my life has been punctuated by inexplicable phenomena long before the events I'm about to recount. To set the stage, I am an 18-year-old male student enrolled in a government-funded trade school nestled along the Pacific coast of the United States. What I'm about to share with you is a series of occurrences that have persisted since well before my arrival at this enigmatic campus. First and foremost, it's imperative to clarify that there are no wolves, coyotes, or stray dogs near the campus grounds. However, our tranquil environment is home to an array of wildlife: black-tailed deer, majestic bald eagles, cawing crows, gulls that dance on the ocean breeze, raccoons that prowl the night, and a menagerie of other small critters. These creatures coexist with us, contributing to the unique atmosphere of our coastal haven. My journey into the world of the inexplicable commenced around 2 months ago when I took up residence in my initial dorm room. This room, situated at the far end of the hall, boasted a sizable window that afforded me a view of the dense forest enveloping our campus. It was a room like any other, at least initially, until the inescapable intrusion of the unknown. One fateful night, as the clock edged toward midnight, my roommate slumbered soundly beside me. The room lay shrouded in darkness, save for the faint moonlight filtering through the window. That's when it happened. An inexplicable sound emanated from the corridor just beyond our room. It began as a curious noise akin to the clicking of claws against the cold, unfeeling tile floor. The sound resonated within me, striking a chord of familiarity as if hearkening back to memories of my parents' home where the family dog would traverse the hardwood floors with her echoing footsteps. But this was different, deeper, more ominous. It jarred me from my somnolence, casting me into a state of unease. The disconcerting rhythm of these phantom footsteps weighed heavily on me. A sense of foreboding enveloped my being. Questions swirled within my mind like a relentless tempest. How could this be? Dogs were strictly prohibited on campus, a rule that applied even to the staff. Moreover, the weighty reality hung in the air. There were no wild planets lurking in our midst. The puzzle deepened, and I found myself trapped in its enigmatic confines. Summoning the courage to awaken my slumbering roommate, I shared the disconcerting sounds that had besieged me. A foreboding tension gripped the room as he stirred, sleepily piecing together the fragments of my unsettling narrative. "You heard it too," he whispered, his voice tremulous in the shadowed room. In an attempt to confront the inexplicable, I cautiously eased open the door, my eyes penetrating the veil of darkness that shrouded the hallway. To my profound dismay, my search yielded naught but emptiness, a stark void where the source of these haunting footfalls should have been. As I conveyed my findings to my roommate, he too confirmed the authenticity of the eerie sounds. He recounted experiencing the same clacking phenomenon on multiple occasions, often punctuated by deep, resonant howls that reverberated through the stillness of the night. Together, we embarked on a journey of discussion and speculation, weaving our fragmented experiences into a coherent narrative. A shared conclusion emerged, an inexplicable connection to a spectral hound, a creature lurking within the labyrinthine corridors of our trade school. In our pursuit of understanding, we dismissed the possibility of natural explanations. Our campus bore the weight of a somber history steeped in tragedy and loss. Over the course of the past 90 years, it had witnessed the somber echoes of homicides and suicides that lingered like unvanquished specters. It was this history, we postulated, that acted as a lodestone for malevolent entities, perhaps even the very hellhound that stalked our halls. Determined to unravel the mystery, I embarked on an investigative journey, seeking to unearth similar encounters. I traversed the dormitories, questioning those who had ventured into the abyss, hoping to unveil kindred spirits who had gazed upon the spectral hound. To my astonishment, my quest bore fruit. 12 individuals from various dormitories bore witness to the inexplicable footsteps that defied logic, accompanied by eerie howls that clawed at the fabric of their reality. Among them was a fellow student who had not merely heard, but seen the entity, confirming our conviction that we were ensnared in the bewildering web of a hellhound's activities. As our investigation drew to a close, the unearthly occurrences seemed to recede into the shadows. A deceptive calm descended upon our campus, and for a brief interlude, tranquility graced our lives. But the peace was fleeting, and our respite would be short-lived. One fateful weekend, as I lay in my room with the window ajar, I heard it, the sound I had been both anticipating and dreading since my roommate's recounting. It was a howl, deep and guttural, akin to the description he had imparted. Morning light heralded my revelation as I excitedly shared my experience with my roommate. His acknowledgement that he too had been roused by the haunting howl cemented the reality of our shared ordeal. The inexplicable was no longer confined to mere auditory experiences, it had transcended into the realm of the undeniable. In my quest for answers, I turned to my fiancée, A, beacon of rationality and critical thinking. She scrutinized our accounts, applying a scientific lens to the inexplicable. While we remained without a conclusive identification of our tormentor, she could not deny the authenticity of our experiences. The mystery persists, and I find myself torn between rationality and the haunting specter of the supernatural. While I am inclined to believe that we have encountered a hellhound or perhaps a spectral guardian, my roommate and I have taken decisive action. We have vacated our former dormitory, leaving behind the echoes of our haunting experiences. Yet the question remains, what unearthly entity lingers in the shadows of our campus? The enigma persists, its answer tantalizingly out of reach. In an ever-changing tapestry of urban legends and eerie phenomena, one topic that has captured the collective imagination in recent times is the resurgence of killer clown sightings. These chilling accounts have spread like wildfire, evoking both fear and fascination. In this chapter, we'll explore one such harrowing tale that left me deeply shaken, a story that unraveled in the heart of Denver, Colorado. My friend's children attend Hamilton Middle School in Denver, a bustling city with its fair share of urban legends. It was through my friend that I first heard of a disturbing encounter that unfolded near the Tamarack Square, close to the Old Dollar movie theater. This story is not for the faint of heart as it delves into the eerie depths of storm drainage tunnels, graffiti-covered walls, and the ominous presence of a clown. The setting for this spine-tingling tale is a storm drainage system concealed beneath the parking lot adjacent to the Tamarack Square. These tunnels snake their way beneath the shopping center, creating a labyrinth of murky waters tainted with decay and underground maze fraught with peril. It was a peculiar choice of hangout for my friend's son and his companion that evening, but the lack of alternatives for young adults in the area seemed to justify their venture. As they ventured deeper into the subterranean passages, their curiosity was piqued by the graffiti adorning the tunnel walls. It was in the dimly lit confines of these tunnels that they stumbled upon a disturbing sight, a dark, almost black substance smeared across the walls. An unsettling aura began to envelop them as they realized that something was profoundly amiss. However, what followed can only be described as deeply unsettling. They began to hear a faint, rhythmic clinking sound as if metal was meeting metal in a sinister symphony. Anxiety gnawed at them, urging them to flee. "Come on, man," one of the boys implored. "We need to get out of here now." Their predicament intensified as every twist and turn seemed to lead them deeper into the labyrinth, distancing them from the storm system's entrance. Panic set in as they scrambled through the cramped passageways, their frenzied footsteps echoing through the tunnels. It was then that my friend's son stumbled, falling to the ground. From his prone position, he beheld a sight that would haunt his nightmares, a figure, a man clad in a clown costume, charging down the tunnel toward them. With adrenaline surging, he sprang to his feet, racing to rejoin his companions, who had, in their fear, left him behind. Desperation urged them onward toward the tunnel's entrance, their heartbeats a frantic rhythm. Upon reaching the tunnel's exit and spilling out into the dry creek bed, they dared to glance back. There, at the tunnel's entrance, stood the clown, a sinister figure with steak knives affixed to his hands, their sharp edges clinking together menacingly. The clown's malevolent gaze bore into them as they fled, the twisted specter of their encounter forever etched in their minds. Terrified and bewildered, they promptly contacted their parents, who in turn alerted the police. However, the authorities seemed disinclined to take their claims seriously, even going so far as to threaten charges of trespassing. Such is the capricious nature of youth, and word of the sinister clown in the Tamarack Square tunnels quickly spread through the school, igniting a frenzy of curiosity. In the days that followed, more children claimed to have seen the clown, each account more harrowing than the last. Some spoke of the clown's baleful actions, describing it as dragging dagger-like fingers along the tunnel walls. Others recounted tales of the clown crawling menacingly toward them. The classic trope of luring children with magic doves and sleight of hand tricks even made an appearance, adding an unsettling layer to the growing hysteria. Fortunately, there had been no mention of red balloons, yet the fear continued to grip the community, leaving a sense of unease in its wake. This resurgence of killer clown sightings served as a grim reminder that urban legends had the power to tap into our deepest fears, blurring the line between reality and myth. While the terror of the killer clown captures our attention with its macabre intrigue, my experiences with the paranormal offer a stark contrast. Raised in a moderately religious Lutheran household, my spiritual sensitivity led me to encounters with a different kind of unexplained phenomenon, ghosts. The first of these encounters unfolded when I was approximately 14 years old during a stay at my grandpa's house, a centennial farmhouse steeped in history. My sisters, father, and I occupied a room referred to as the trophy room, a chamber adorned with the trophies of big game hunters. The room was vast, 2 stories high, and adorned with the preserved remains of bison, deer, bears, zebras, and wolves. It was a peculiar and somewhat eerie setting to lay one's head at night. Despite the unsettling presence of lifeless eyes and a wall of windows staring out into the darkness, I found myself sleeping more soundly in the trophy room than I would in the upstairs bedroom, which we later moved to. In that room, an odd sense of being watched, of never truly being alone, persisted. Even in broad daylight, an eerie sensation accompanied me as if an unseen presence lingered just beyond my field of vision. Bumps and noises attributed to an old house's creaking pipes or scuttling mice were difficult to dismiss when coupled with an inexplicable sense of surveillance. This disconcerting feeling, however, was exclusive to certain parts of the house, primarily the older sections. The newer additions, such as the trophy room or the kitchen, remained untouched by this eerie energy. During my stay, I never saw apparitions, nor did my sisters. Yet, the oppressive feeling of being watched and an undeniable malevolence persisted. As years passed, I would return to my grandparents' house during the summers to work, taking on tasks like painting windows, barn doors, decks, and tending to them. Grounds. The sensation of being watched endured. It felt as though an uninvited presence lingered in the windows, casting a cold and unwelcome gaze upon my every move. The discomfort was palpable, a persistent reminder that I was trespassing in a domain not entirely my own. It was only later that I learned of the farmhouse's dark history. The original family who built it and whose land it stood upon had buried their patriarch somewhere on the property. This revelation deepened my belief that the malevolent farmer was still a presence within those time-worn walls, an ever-watchful guardian of his land. Even to this day, when I visit my grandparents' house, a sense of unease accompanies me. I avoid ascending the stairs alone, and certain areas, like the basement with its dirt floor, exude an unsettling aura, one that suggests I am not entirely welcome. In this chapter, we have explored two disparate tales, one of a killer clown haunting the underground tunnels of Denver and another of a lingering, ghostly presence within an old farmhouse. While urban legends like killer clowns captivate our fears, personal encounters with the paranormal remind us that the boundary between the living and the spectral realms is often shrouded in mystery and dread, leaving us to ponder the inexplicable and eerie forces that lurk in the shadows.